Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 30 of Robbie's Backstage Bants. Today, I'm joined by Harry Francis. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm really good, yeah. I love doing these things, like chatting to everybody. It's such like an eye opener, and especially everyone's been willing to do it in the pandemic. It's so nice to see.
Well, we've all got the time to do it, so it's it.
That's true.
No,
Hopefully for
good for
not much
you.
longer
Good for
though.
you. Hopefully, we've got light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. How have you been coping then with all of the whole lockdown situation?
I feel like it's gone through various stages.
Mm.
The very first chunk, the first lockdown, there was something quite exciting about it because it was new. It
Yeah.
was suddenly the idea that everything stopped, and actually having been on the go really since I was 16, working non-stop, definitely not non-stop, but you're on the roll all the time. When you're not working, you're constantly auditioning or you're trying to get a
Yeah.
job, or so it's like a non-stop train that just keeps going. So suddenly this idea that everything stopped and there's nothing you can do about it, and it's actually quite lovely. And I suddenly refound my passion for drawing again. I was listening to podcasts about things I would never listen to. I was kind of enjoying this time to have, I was enjoying the time to have time. I was reading books more, and that was all very exciting. And then there was a day, because both my parents are actors, and I remember once I was sat in the garden, both me and my dad started to have this kind of anxious feeling about it all. And we sat there. I remember having this chat with him one day, and we just went, "We're going to get left behind, aren't we?" And I don't mean us personally, I meant our industry.
Yeah.
And I think there was the whole "we're in this together" feeling, which was so exciting and wonderful. Not exciting because it was such an awful time, but there was something quite moving about the whole country saying, and the whole world saying, "We're in this together." And then slowly other industries go back, and suddenly lots of people on Twitter don't think the arts is very important. And you start to realize that we're suddenly looked upon as people who aren't high skilled, and so there was all of that. So I was also very lucky. At the end of the first lockdown, I was offered the chance to go and do Pippin at the Eagle pub and all of that. So I was so lucky to do that, because for me it just came out of the blue, and it was a week's rehearsal, and then I got to perform and do the show with five other performers, and it was just I knew, we all knew how lucky we were. How lucky we were, because mentally you actually got to the point, and I'm sure some people do feel like this still, where you start to go, I haven't performed in so long. Am I still a performer? You start to go, will I perform again? You start to doubt whether that part of your life is done. And so for me, it was that wonderful feeling of being back in a rehearsal room, back on stage, and that excitement and nerves, and going, okay, I remember this feeling again now, and I love it, and I'm not stopping. So so I was lucky with that.
Yeah, and you've done a fair bit of teaching, haven't you? Like workshops and things.
Yeah, a lot of workshops, and I've been very proud to have been part of the Magnetic Studios team from day one. So Lindsay Atherton, who I did Cats with years ago, and her boyfriend Alex, they knew that there were lots of teachers they knew, and they thought, well, why don't we just start putting a small schedule together? So it's like and they were all free classes. We taught for free for ages.
Wow.
Because we wanted to keep each other going. We thought this was going to be 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and that's what we do as an industry. We do keep each other going at times like this. Again, times like this, there's never times like this, but through tough times, we do try and look out for each other, because we all get it. We all know how much this can mentally, how tough this can be mentally. So for months we were teaching for free, and then more and more teachers added on. So suddenly the schedule was full of dance teachers and fitness teachers, and it was amazing. And then eventually we turned it into a business. But the thing that was wonderful for me was, there's a class that I teach called Body Art, which my friend Jay Elster introduced me to years ago in New York, and the two of us now teach it. And for years I was trying to get the word out about it, and lockdown's given me this opportunity where I could do online classes, and more people have discovered it, and luckily lots of people have loved it, and they keep coming back. So for me, it's after years of trying to say, come and try this new class,
it's
been a wonderful way of doing it. And so that's kept me going. That's, you know, every week, knowing mentally I've got to plan a class, I've got to come up with new exercises. Mentally on day one, that has got me through, because it meant I knew what day of the week it was, because I knew on Thursday I teach on that day. And that for me was like, well, that's the beginning and end of my week, so on a Thursday, because that's the only commitment I have right now, is that teaching time.
So, we all had different weeks that created themselves, started when we wanted them to start, when we had things going on. And
we had no, I think, I mean, there were so many patches where I don't think anyone knew what day of the week it was. It was just everything blurred. And it was exhausting, because you didn't give yourself a day off in the same way. Sometimes you give yourself lots of days off, and that felt lovely, but sometimes you didn't have that consistency. So that was the weird thing of going, where you would normally allow yourself to go, I've done a lot of work recently, I'm going to give myself this day off. Because every day was up to you to plan, you didn't really allow yourself to just, you know, do that. Sometimes you would feel like, well, I should be doing something, I should be creating or doing something. So it
was strange, and everyone started new things. I mean, I started this, but I didn't start this until the end of August last year, so I wish I'd started it much sooner. I mean, I wish I did, because it would have been great.
Honestly, good for you. I think this time has shown everyone that if you have an idea, you can get it done. You just put it into place. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that have got the thing that's really helped me mentally are people like yourself who have put these interviews together, because I've listened to so many of these Broadway interviews of different performers and people that I admire, and I sit there, you know, I'll go for a long walk and I'll listen to someone like Gavin Creel or someone that I really admire talking about their life and their career, and it's inspiring. So whether you're listening to this as a performer or someone who enjoys the arts or anything like that, it's lovely to have this content out there, because you know, it's very interesting how some people could all be in the same industry, but everyone's lives are very similar and very different at the same time. There's so many different versions of how people end up being somewhere. So thank you for doing this, because it's I need to look through all the other interviews, but I know you've had some really great people.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, I've got 30 episodes out there from this one, so
well, I've got to go back and listen to all of them.
There you go. You got 29, and then so the first sort of question I've got for you is, what is the journey of how you got to where you are today?
Right. So I was obsessed with musicals as a child. My parents are actors, and my grandparents are actors, but they were very much straight theatre actors and TV actors. They love musicals, but that wasn't their thing. But my mum made the big mistake of introducing me to musicals and playing South Pacific to me and The King and I and all these musicals. And I was obsessed to the point that I would go to nursery wearing a top hat. I would refuse to go anywhere if I wasn't wearing my top hat. And I wore this top hat everywhere. Yeah. And my mum took me to see, the first two shows I ever saw were Oliver at the Palladium. And with my top hat, I wore full Dodger costume, and I was 2.5. I went in full costume. And in the same year, I think just before that, the first play I saw was A Christmas Carol with my dad playing Scrooge. Oh, wow. So again, it was another Dickensian London thing. And I was obsessed. I must have been about 3 or something. And I've always loved art as well, but I would find cardboard boxes and I would paint the skyline of London from, maybe I was a bit older, maybe it wasn't still 3, but I was so obsessed from those experiences. Yeah. And because both of those shows have a sense of danger to them, A Christmas Carol and Oliver, they're exciting, but it's Dickensian London, it's danger. And I think that really excited me. And I remember the opening of Oliver at the Palladium had this thunder crash. And I remember being so small, but I remember this image so clearly of being terrified by it, but loving it, being going, what is this thing I'm watching? Yeah. So cut to years later, I was obsessed. My mum and dad luckily took me to see as much theatre as I begged them to take me to. And my mum took me to see The King and I at the London Palladium when I was, I think at this point, 8. And the show starts, and of course, Louis runs on stage, who's the one white child in the show.
Yeah.
And I see this boy run on stage, and then he starts to sing, and I just remember thinking, I'm going to play that. And I was in that. When people talk about manifesting now, is that did I say that word right? Yeah. I put that into place. Then I watched that boy, and I went, I'm going to do that. So I begged my mum every day. She actually refused to let me audition at first because she didn't want me to get caught up in the heartbreak of the industry at that point. Yeah. But eventually she got me an audition, and I went back and back and back, and eventually I got the job. But in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to go play that role. So I'd already made my mind up that's what I'm doing. So, and it was the most magical experience. I spent a year at the Palladium doing that show, and it was just life-changing with the most stunning cast. Then after that, I went and did Chitty Chitty Bang Bang at the Palladium, played Jeremy for 6 months. Carrie Fletcher was my Jemima. She was my sister in the show. And wow. I mean, again, and working with Michael Ball, who was a hero of mine, as playing my dad, and all these amazing people, Brian Blessed, Nicola McAuliffe. So did that, then went off to Sylvia Young Theatre School, was there for a few years, then went off and trained in ballet, and I took ballet very seriously, and I went and trained in Cuba. I had this amazing ballet teacher who I still go to called Anna Duboisson, who teaches at Pineapple, and she trained me. And then I went to college a year early. I got into college when I was 15, so I went to Millennium. So I skipped the GCSEs, which maybe people listening who are doing the GCSEs. It's me. Probably not the best advice, but that's what I did. I ended up skipping them, and I went to college early. And then at the end of my first year at college, I got my first job, which was, this is my favorite story. And if anyone's ever heard me being interviewed before, they'll hear me saying the exact same story over and over. But I heard they were auditioning for West Side Story, and I was obsessed with West Side Story from the age of 6 or something. It was something I watched all the time. And I knew they were auditioning for this UK tour, and I was so desperate to audition. And my mum said, look, don't go, because there was an open audition. She said, because if the college find out, they'll really be annoyed, and we don't want you to lose your place. So I didn't. And we had half term coming up. And during half term, I went to open dance classes at Danceworks every single day. So I went by myself and went off and did ballet classes, jazz classes. And they were auditioning for West Side Story in the studio downstairs. And when I was doing a ballet class, the casting director was watching me through the window. And he said to the people on the front desk, they said, can you tell that guy to come and talk to us afterwards? So I was 16 at the time, and I left the room, and they said, oh, the people at West Side Story want you to go and talk to them. So I went downstairs, still in my tights, and I went into the audition room, still in my tights, and they said, can you just come in and talk to us? And they said, can you do a few jetés, a few jumps for us, just so we can kind of see what you can do? And then they said, can you sing for us? So I had to sing a moment of Officer Krupke, but they said, don't sing lyrics, just sing ba 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 ba. That's all I had to sing. And then they said, look, we'll bring you back in a few days' time to audition properly. I think I did another 3 auditions that week, and then had the job by the end of the week. Wow. And my life changed. Got this dream job of going off and touring with West Side Story, which was a lovely mix of ballet dancers, because it's such a classical show, and opera singers and musical theatre performers. So my learning continued on that job, and we did ballet class every day on stage and all of that. And then since then just carried on trying to be a performer, and kept it.
Busy.
Fairly busy.
Was there any other career paths in mind? Well, you said from the age of 2 you were completely obsessed, but was there ever anything that you thought you wanted to get into, or was it always performing?
It's always theatre related. My other passion was always set design. I've always been obsessed with set design. I used to cover my school books when I wasn't listening in science and any of those subjects. I would be I'd be drawing all over my books, and I would always be imagining. I can't talk today. Imaginary. I can't talk. Imagining how I would design a production of Gypsy or the Wizard of Oz or something. So I would always be covering my books and designs and things like that. my other thing has always been artwork, so which I have managed to do alongside what I do now.
Yeah.
But I've always loved Al Hirschfeld's work, and so the whole theatrical artist side is something I've always wanted to pursue as well. So yeah, that's kind of it. It's cool. Always been theatre related.
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever be caught in a bank, unfortunately. So I think it's always going to. Yeah, it's exciting. I love it. I'm still a theatre fan at heart, and that's the thing. When I go on my holidays to New York, I am that person who will go and see 15 shows in a trip and will love every second. So people used to say to me, "Oh, after a few years in the industry, you'll lose all that. You will be jaded, and you won't want to go to the theatre." And I'm like, I'm still hanging in there. I still love it, and I still love it. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, I love that you've always been into sort of theatre in general. So now we're just gonna jump onto a bit of a chat about your career. I've tried to pick bits that you might want to talk about, but if there's anything I missed, do let me know that you want to talk about. I know there's not everything in there. There's a lot. So the first thing I wrote down was Hairspray.
Yeah,
what was that like?
It was amazing. So this was after West Side Story. I did a panto playing Peter Pan, and then I joined the first tour of Hairspray. So it was Michael Ball sharing the role of Edna with Brian Conley and Michael Stark. And it was the first big UK tour. So it was the full West End set, the full big production, as it has been. You know, all the productions of it are wonderful since. But it was exciting because sometimes when you go into a long running show, like I loved my time on, say, Wicked, but when you go into a long running show, you might be joining with maybe 4 or 5 other people. And for you, it's exciting to go in, but you go in and there's lots of people who've been there for 3 or 4 years. And so it's a different experience, as the tour was a brand new company. So you all start together and you all have the experience of being rehearsed together in the same way. And sometimes that just adds a bit of a freshness to the whole experience. So I started that tour when I was 17 and finished it when I was 19. So it was a long tour. I think it was about 14 and a half months. And I loved it. I had a great time. It was a show that I had seen twice on Broadway. I went with my dad on a trip, and then a few years later, I went again with my mum and sister, and I said, we have to go and see this, because for me, it's just perfect.
It is.
It's the most beautifully put together show. It is a modern day classic, and it's actually very much ahead of its time with the way it's got a very 2001 mindset, I believe, when it deals with being, be who you are and continue being who you are, and the small-minded people will be educated, basically, is Hairspray in a nutshell. Is people will hopefully take a moment and learn and become better people around that person who is different. But yeah, it was just a magical show, and I had the most amazing cast. We had Claire House, who obviously was Peggy in 42nd Street. She was Amber. Liam Doyle as Link. Laurie Scarf, who she doesn't perform anymore, but she was the most just perfect Tracy. She was incredible. And in the ensemble, people like Lauren Stroud, and lots of amazing people. So it was fantastic. It was a dream gig. I loved it, and I didn't miss a single performance for the entire run. I was determined. I was like, I'm doing every single show. So I've got a bottle of champagne upstairs from the producers. That was a congratulations bottle of champagne. I still got it for I kept it. It's got a Hairspray logo on it because I managed to hang in there and do every single performance.
Wow. Do you keep many things from the shows that you've been in? Have you got like a box of memories?
Far too many things. Yes, I always.
That'd be me.
It's either things I try and steal that no one would ever know about, or massive posters that I'm never going to put on a wall anywhere because I haven't got the space. But I have them all. So one day we have a chorus line poster that's probably the size of this wall, that my mum went and tracked down from like the London Underground companies.
Wow.
When the chorus line was closing. because on the poster there were 5 of us, 5 or 6, maybe 6 of us in our gold costumes, and I was one of them. So I've got that, but one day I need to find a place to put it. Unfortunately, a lot of dancers don't tend to have lots of big houses, so when I have my own place one day, I'm sure it'll be quite small. So I still need to find a place with walls.
I know it's like it wasn't major performing, but we were in the background, sort of just filling the stage for these operas that were on tour, and so they picked, you know, so many people from different areas and things. And that was the last time I was in a theatre before the pandemic, at the end of February last year.
Wow. So whereabouts based then? Which theatre?
Northeast. So this was Sunderland Empire. We were beautiful plays. And
that theatre is beautiful.
It is gorgeous. I wanted to get a poster. I was like, okay. So I went and asked at the box office. I was like, you know, good memories, get a poster. And they were like, the only one we have is massive. I was like, okay. It's like the size of me. And I'm, you know, about 5'11" maybe. It's one of the big outdoor ones. Oops.
Amazing.
Don't know where that's going. So the next thing.
Yeah, but you've got to have those things. Though.
Exactly.
And once you have them, you just can't get rid of them.
No.
Because you just like it's too precious to. I've got merchandise from the King Guy when I was 9 that obviously I can't fit into anymore.
No.
Because I've grown a little bit since I was 9, not too much, just a bit. So yeah.
So the next thing I've written down is Wicked, which is one of my favourite shows at the minute. I absolutely love Wicked. So what was that experience for you?
So Wicked was another one. My very first trip to New York, I went to see it. Wow. And I was obsessed with it. And I think, so Wicked had maybe been open, I want to say maybe 2 years, but by the time I saw it in New York, it was before it opened in London. And I saw Megan Hilty and Eden Espinosa playing the leads, and Ben Vereen and Derek Williams, lots of amazing people. And when the show opened in London, I was still at Silver Young Theatre School, and they did a deal which was, I think, £10 off all prices for previews. Now, the back 8 to 10 rows of the dress circle were £15 tickets, so suddenly they were £5. So I went around the whole of Silver Young Theatre School and went, who wants to go and see Wicked? Got £5 notes from all these students, and I must have organised a trip for at least maybe 80 students to go and see it. So I went to the box office with they must have hated me at that box office when I literally gave them an envelope with lots of £5 notes in it. And I booked everyone's tickets because I knew how much everyone was going to be obsessed with the show. So I organised a trip. So I must have been about 14 or 13.
Wow.
And so when I got to do the show, it was a real dream come true. There's something when you're a fan of a show, like I was with Hairspray, and you get to step into a show that is the same design as the one you saw in America or you saw it in London. It feels like you're stepping into Wicked Land or into Hairspray Land. It's something quite surreal. You do get used to it, of course, but when you suddenly have these moments of going, that's Glinda in her bubble, that's that guy wearing that coat, I remember that jacket, I remember that wig, and you're just suddenly on stage going, this is surreal. I feel like I've put on 3D glasses and jumped into a film or something. So I was geeking out over all of that, and it was just great. I was 19 and just had the best time, and I understudied Bach in it. I was second cover, so I didn't get on that many times, but luckily I think I did about 5 shows, and it was again a really great a really good learning experience for me, because it's the first time I understudied, and I feel like Bach is the perfect amount for your first understudy role to take on, because it was one that was lovely, but you don't have to be on stage for the entire show. So you've got to go on and enjoy your moments and really enjoy getting a chance to put your own spin on that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't overwhelming, like going on for Elphaba or a huge role like that. I think if it was my first time understudying, now I think I would know how to prepare myself for something like that. But I think it was the perfect amount for me at that time. And I just had the best time. Great cast. Amazing. Rachel Tucker is just unbelievable, and Gina Beck was incredible. Wow. And in fact, all the Glindas and Elphabas, all the covers, every single person was just. I had the privilege of standing underneath all the alphabets, I used to stand dead center underneath them singing Define Gravity. And that was one of those moments you just stand there with your back to the audience and looking up going, I'm in Wicked, this is pretty cool. And you do a few gestures to be animated, but really you're just standing there going, that's Rachel Tucker and she's incredible and faultless. And but all of them were, I was blown away by every single performer who played Elphaba and Glinda, but all of them, the covers used to just, it would be when a third cover goes on or a fourth cover and you'd go, oh, let's see what they're going to be like, and they would just blow you away. Fantastic. And that's always exciting, where someone that you're standing next to in the ensemble who you know is talented, then you see them have their moment. That's always really exciting when you see that happen. I love that.
No, Wicked is incredible. Now you mentioned obviously you did a chorus line, but something I was really intrigued by, which just had to like knock the place out of the chat. Edward Scissorhands. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah. So I'll actually link the two together. So when I was doing a chorus line, I was playing Mark, who's the youngest one.
Yeah.
And I understudied Mike, who sings I Can Do That. Mm-hmm. And so I was one of the only people who were on the line playing a character and understudied another. So that was confusing in itself. The first night I went on for Mike, which again, you know, when you haven't had a chance to watch the other role and it's quite daunting to go on for a cover like that. I got told I was going to be on. I got to the theatre, I was warmed up, and everyone said, right, so Harry's on. And then the company manager went, oh, and by the way, Matthew Bourne's in the audience. And I just remember going, oh, why did they tell me that? Why did they tell me that? Because, you know, I just adored all his shows, and I was so desperate to work for him. And he watched the show, and luckily the show went well. And I got this lovely message from him saying, at some point, I'd love to work with you. And then a few months later, he got in contact about Edward Scissorhands. And he had done the show previously, I think 2 times before. And it was just beautiful because you had that Tim Burton world, which he had, you know, developed in a whole new way and added to. And there were characters from the movie who you got to meet their families. So like, is she called Joyce Monroe in the movie? The one who tries to seduce him. Mm-hmm. So I played the son, and I was baton twirling and very flamboyant, and so I got to play 2 different roles. And the thing that's really wonderful with that company is you all get 1 show off a week, which at first I found that bizarre because I'm not used to having a show off. But is instead of having a swing, they alternate the performances, but you all play 2 or 3 different characters and you alternate. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there was a single day where I would do a double show day and I wouldn't be playing one in the matinee and a different role in the evening. Wow. So it kept the show interesting all the time because you'd always have a different dance partner or a different mother character or a different father. And so that was really interesting. And he really allows you to take the template of the character and then find your own version of it. Mm-hmm. So my version of Gerald, who was the baton twirling show queen character, I was giving it Donna McKechnie in the chorus line. I was very, very full out and stagey with that, and had the best time because I got to let out my inner Strallen. That's what I used to call it. I was the male Strallen in that show. So I had the best time. On that. Yeah. And Matthew Bourne is just a genius. He's so clever. He's so clever.
Absolutely. Now, the next thing is another one of my favorite shows, Book of Mormon. How excited is that?
So, I auditioned for Book of Mormon. I think I've auditioned for Book of Mormon more than any other show. I auditioned for it originally and probably did about 13 auditions the first time. And then the next year I went back again and did another 8 auditions and didn't get it. And then so it was 3rd time round that I got it. So I think there was 1 year I missed. So I think it was the 4th cast. And so it was one of those ones that you just kind of go, will it ever happen? Will it ever happen? And it is a really fantastic show. It is a really fantastic show. Personally, it wasn't my favorite show to do though. I think I'm a fan of the show. I could sit and watch it and, you know, enjoy it all the time. But I think I I personally found it quite it's such a machine of a show. It's such a machine. And I'm sure Wicked was, but I think because I was younger, I didn't quite take that in. But it's very difficult when you've got 5 lines. They're all funny lines, and the pressure you put on yourself to make them funny. Mm-hmm. And actually, it knocked my confidence so much, because if I would say that line and I didn't get the laugh that I would, like, if you're playing a bigger role and you have to walk into that scene, you have to pick up that chair, put the chair down and say a line, and then you say another line. Moving the chair isn't the important bit, but if you're that ensemble member who has to put that chair down for someone else, that can become the most important thing. And if you get it wrong, you walk off stage going, oh, I failed tonight, I failed.
Yeah.
And I put so much pressure on myself to nail those moments. And I've learned since, when I've done other things where I've had, more to do, you can kind of let something go. If it doesn't land, it doesn't matter, because the next one will. But when you've only got 5 lines and you don't, it's like if you, in Wicked, I had a few bits to sing by myself. And if they forgot to put my microphone up for that one line that you get to sing, you just go, oh, my friends were watching tonight, and that was my one line I got to sing. Yeah. And you kind of feel like your show was ruined because that's your one little moment. So sometimes it can really not, for me anyway, that show, I put pressure on myself and I didn't allow myself to enjoy it enough, I don't think. I think when you actually have more to do, it's easier to kind of let that bit go because the next bit will be fine, So, but it is it's a great show. It is a great show, and the cast were amazing as always. And I've never laughed so much doing a show because everyone was funny as hell, like funny, naughty as hell. Lots of pranks on stage.
I bet. I could only imagine. Now, the final show we're going to chat about is obviously Cats, because you've done a lot of Cats. So what can you say about Cats?
So, okay, here we go. I used to dress up as a cat as a kid. I was so obsessed with that show. I've been obsessed with most shows I've done. I've been that 6-year-old who's obsessed with it. I've literally grown up to do the shows that I, was obsessed to do. I'm obsessed with child. Cats was a video, video. This is before your time when we had VHS. But I remember when Cats came out in 97, 98, whenever the film came out. And I remember getting a copy and my mind was blown. I was like, what is this? They're human cats and they're dancing and I want to be in this. And I used to watch it all the time. So I was obsessed with it. I was just so obsessed and I wanted to play every character in it. I wanted to be everything in it. I just loved it. And it was one of those ones that I auditioned for a few times, and then sometimes you'd be auditioning and then you get something else, and then you wouldn't see it through to the finals or something. But it was one of those ones that you go, I just want to do it at some point. And I remember the show was at the Palladium with I think Kerry Ellis by that point, and it'd just been Nicole. And I was hearing about, I was like, oh, I need to go and see it. And I was in an audition for something else, and I heard the audition pianist talking to someone going, oh, apparently they're going to be taking Cats back to the Palladium next year with a new cast. And my ears just pricked up and I was like, oh really? Okay, that's going to be my next job. I am determined I need to be in the show.
Yeah.
So that was my mission. And so did the very long audition process and audition for Gillian Lynn and all of that. And I got to play Munga Jerry when it went back to the Palladium. So I did it at Blackpool for the summer and then played Munga Jerry, and I understudied Skimbleshanks as well.
Oh.
And again, it was just one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something really exciting when you get to play a character from start to finish, which sometimes in the ensemble, you don't always get that privilege to do that.
Yeah.
Where you get to walk on stage and you are that character. And the thing is, with Munga Jerry, you can be as naughty as you want. I was so cheeky and naughty. Yeah. And when we went to the audience, you could get away with anything and you could keep yourself entertained at all times. Me and my dance partner, who was my rumple teaser, we were very naughty and we would always wind each other up and prank each other on stage, but within character. So you could always get away with it.
Yeah.
But I also at the same time was, when I got my offer for it, they said, you're going to be Mungojerry and you're going to be understudying something. And I auditioned for Mr. Mistopheles and Skimbleshanks as well. So in my head, I went, oh, well, I'll be understudying Mistopheles because that's something I do, all the ballet tricks. So when the offer came through and they went, okay, so you'll be covering Skimbleshanks, I was like, oh, I'm really excited. I went, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. So I did spend a contract with Cats going, oh, I really wish I could have had a go at Mistopheles. That was really my dream role.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, 2019, they were casting for the tour, and I bumped into the casting team when I was doing a class, and they were looking for a Mungojerry, and I made a joke and I said, well, if you need a Mungojerry, I'm here, as a joke. And my agent got a call straight away, went, oh, they're just checking, are you actually interested in doing the show again? And I was like, oh, I'd love to go back as something else, but I had the best time as Mungojerry, but I'd love to go back as something else. Anyway, they had someone lined up to do Mistopheles, who then got another job, and he pulled out at the last second. And they suddenly just went, can you come and play Mistopheles? And I went, yes, I can. And so I got to turn up, and I was on holiday, so I had to miss the first couple of weeks of rehearsals. And I turned up, and I had just the best time. So Chrissy Cartwright, who has put the show on around the world for however many years, 35 something years, like maybe more than that, she is extraordinary, but she created my version of the Mistopheles solo. So I think I'm possibly, could be wrong, the only left turner who's played the role, as in doing everything to the left. She pretty much reversed the entire solo for me. So everything, all the lighting had to change, so it would work with the way I was doing it. And so that's lovely when people make that that change for you.
Yeah.
And I got the privilege to tour around China. So we went to so I did the first half of the tour, and I shared it with somebody else. And I was there for Shanghai. I went to Wuhan. This is when we hadn't heard of Wuhan. But now the whole world has heard of Wuhan. And I loved it there. It was great.
Nice?
Yeah, it's just a massive city, and the theatre was great, and the audiences there were... I learned something when I was in Wuhan, actually. Sometimes as performers, it's always, I want to be in the West End, I want to be in a big UK tour. It's always, that's the focus. We opened in Shanghai, and Shanghai has a very sophisticated audience who get, ballet companies and operas, and they get a lot of different culture coming into their theatre. So they saw, when they saw Cats, they'd obviously had Cats there a few times, and the reception was great, and people were very polite, and the audience were great. But I thought, oh, maybe in China, everyone's going to be very polite. It's not going to be screaming, no standing ovations. Maybe it's just going to be it's like a very polite audience. Okay, we get to Wuhan, who aren't used to having these big musicals turning up. And in the overture of Cats, we go into the audience with these flashing eyes, and it's the first bit of audience participation where you take them by surprise. It was like a rock concert in Wuhan. They went crazy for it. And I remember just thinking then, this is what theatre is about, because instead of, I love being in the West End, but people have seen everything. You could give them the most amazing magic trick on stage, and someone could go, oh, well, I saw that trick in this, So when you go somewhere where people are going, I've never seen a show like this. I'm sure people in the audience had seen musicals, but it was like you had a fresh audience. It was so fresh to seeing a musical like this. So you went, oh, this is what it's about. We are giving an experience. Fantastic. And it's not like they can go, okay, well, tomorrow I'm going to go see Phantom. And this was their experience. They were seeing Cats. And for a lot of people, they had never seen a show like that before. So that was exciting. And they reacted to everything we did. And went to Beijing, Nanjing, Wuxi, and a few other places. And then went to Singapore, went to the Philippines. And then COVID-19 happened, and we were supposed to go back out to tour China in 2020. Obviously, that got cancelled. We were supposed to do a European tour. That got cancelled. And then most recently, we were supposed to go out to China. I got offered again to go back at the end of this year, and that's recently been cancelled as well. So maybe one day I'll be a Cat again. Who knows? We'll see. I might be Gus by the time. Was that?
Should do a UK tour. That'd be nice.
I'd like that. Although I did love the idea of being in a 5-star hotel in the middle of Asia and getting to
That's the
go
thing.
to the Great Wall of China on my day off. So that's not, as much as I love Sunderland, you can't go to the Great Wall of China on your day off. It's not quite the same thing.
You really can't. No, that's a good point. So now we're gonna
can I just say though, Sunderland,
go for
the thing I always remember is their Greg's restaurant. I remember in the shopping mall there was literally a sit down Greg's, and I was like, I have never seen a Greg's restaurant. If that's still there, that's amazing, because I remember thinking this is the best thing ever. That's a sit down Greg's.
You see, we're just out of Sunderland. However, down our town, so we're like about 40 minutes away. We have a sitting Greg's now. So
that is class. That is pure class right there. On tour, there are a few things you look for. You look for a Nando's, you look for your Pret, your Starbucks, and you have to find your Greg's.
Your Greg's.
They'll be everywhere, and it's comfort everywhere you go.
It's the best. So now we're going to jump onto the fans' questions. Now, these should be quite easy. They're quite snappy questions. They're good.
All right.
The first one's from Trevor, and Trevor has asked, if you forget a line on stage, what do you do?
Make something up, hopefully. I love it when it happens. I love ad-libbing. I love it, especially if the audience knows something's gone wrong. On Pippin, because Pippin, you break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
I had a few moments where something didn't quite work, and I used to love it. And the cast would come off and be like, Harry, what are you on today? Because I literally be like, okay, it's Harry's time to stand up. I'm going to throw some jokes in now. And I love that. So, but you do your best to make things up. And if it's another actor, you do your best to help them out of that situation. Yeah. If you know someone's dried, it's a terrifying experience when that happens.
It is.
But that wasn't a short answer. Sorry, I'll keep my answer short.
that was good. You don't have to keep it short. Okay. Evie's asked, what show did you find most challenging?
Physically, Cats.
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing 4 show weekends of Mr. Mistopheles, that is a very difficult role to do 4 times back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And vocally, the Book of Mormon. So I'd say that Book of Mormon would be, because I was on the top tenor line. So trying to sing top A's and B's and occasionally a C all the way through, it's a lot. So yeah, I'd say those 2 for those reasons. So physically for that and vocally for the other one.
Very good answers. The next one is from Olivia. Now, you mentioned Mr. Mistopheles was your dream role, but what is your dream role now?
Oh, so many. It depends what age I am. Like at the moment, my dream, I've got a number of them, but one of them is Finch and How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. Yeah. I would love to do that. Or, if they do it and they cast a celebrity, I'd love to understudy it. That's absolutely fine. I just love to do that. One day I'd love to play the MC in Cabaret. I'd love to have a go at that. I'd love to do some Sondheim as well. But I also just want to be involved in creating new things. I especially, something where you can either take a show and completely turn it on its head and come in with your own ideas. I love the workshopping rehearsal experience when it's a show that you are very much creating. I find that very, very exciting. And I've had a big mix of either go into a show where it's completely set, but I personally find it more exciting when you can go in and go, what are we going to create today? How can we do this differently? So I'd love to do something completely new as well one day.
An original. The next question is from Corey, and Corey asked, what was your favorite dance routine in Cats?
So the Mistopheles solo is one of the most exciting things I'll ever, and I was so lucky that my parents got to fly out to see me do it in Singapore.
Oh, fantastic.
And for me, it's the inner ballet boy, the boy who has grown up being obsessed with Carlos Acosta and all my favorite ballet dancers. It was the only role where you go, I feel like I am a ballet dancer doing this role, because you do all your big turns and seconds, your jumps, and you do all your ballet tricks. And it's a real 11 o'clock number. It's one of those moments you get to come on and you get to own the stage for your time. But the Jellicle Ball is one of the most challenging things I'll ever do. Now, the thing that does make me sad is I didn't know, obviously, when I finished the show, I thought I was coming back, so I didn't take it in as this is the last time I'm doing it. Hence why I made the Cats in Quarantine film, because I went, I want to make something to be like, if I don't go back to Cats, this is my way of going, you know, thank you, and it's been wonderful. But when I finished it at the Palladium, where I did think this was the last time, I remember walking off stage, and we all, I'm getting a bit choked up in thinking about it, we all just threw everything into that last ball. It's the hardest choreography, but you hate it and love it. It hurts to do, but it's the most fulfilling choreography you'll ever do, because it just keeps going and going. It gets harder and harder. And I remember walking off the stage, like crawling off the stage at the end and walking down the corridor to the dressing room. And I just broke into tears, because it was like this emotional release of going, I'm never going to put myself through that again. Luckily, a few years later, I got to.
Yeah.
But then I shouldn't be saying this, but somebody front of house was very kind and actually filmed that final performance. And just that last section of the ball, which I think I might have on my Instagram, which again, I shouldn't have done, but anyway. And they sent it to me maybe about 3 months after we finished. Went, oh, by the way, you'd like to see this. And I was like, I'm so happy this is here, because I sent it to the cast. I went, look, you know, I didn't know there was footage of this. And the thing that's really lovely at the end is at the end, you finish the ball and everyone dives to the floor. And the thing is, you have to keep an eye on one character, which is Rumble Teaser, and she waits for the applause. And at some point, that character will make the decision to lift her head and continue with the show. Mm-hmm. So we all keep an eye on that one person. That final show, none of us did that. We finished on the ball and we all looked up. I thought, because I was at the front, I thought I was the only one to do this. I was like, I'm going to take in and look at the whole of the London Palladium cheering for us. So in character, I looked up and just took it in. Everyone did it. And it was really special, because I saw everyone's faces look up and go, wow, we're at the London Palladium on a last night, and this is special. And everyone did the same thing. And I knew everyone had that same feeling of going, we're making the most of this last time. So it was special. So yes, the Jellicle Ball and Mr. Mistopheles, both of them, I'd say both sections.
And the final fans question is from Lana. And Lana's asked, which show are you most excited to see when lockdown lifts?
Oh, so many. I honestly, as soon as I know for definite that show is opening on that date, I am booking to see Phantom. I'm booking to see Jersey Boys. I'm booking to see Come From Away.
Cinderella.
Anything at the National. I will do my best to. I don't care if I have to remortgage my parents' house to afford to go and see things. I'm going to go and see as much theatre as possible. They might not be happy about that.
No.
But yeah, and also, do you know what? I think because everyone said it so many times, I'd happy be at Wicked simply to hear her say her first line in the bubble, to say it's good to see me. I think, yeah, literally, I don't think there's any point of me going to see these things all the way through, because I think I'll just sit there crying all the way through. But I think people have always mentioned this of going, oh, the day the West End reopens, it's going to come back in stages.
Yeah.
And I was so lucky that I got to go and see Six before Christmas. I saw Six in London. And that day that I went to see it, my sister took me as a Christmas present. Mm-hmm. And I was walking through London earlier that day with my mask on and all of that. And I walked past the theatre and for a moment completely forgot I was seeing it that night. And I saw the matinee audience queuing up for the theatre. And it completely broke me, because I was like, they're actually going into a theatre to see a show. And I kind of clocked what I was getting to do that night. And so we sat maybe 3 rows back and got to see Six, which I'd never seen. And I loved it. And those performers are just extraordinary. They were amazing. So I was blown away by the whole experience, but also turning around and feeling the love from the audience. And I was like, so I've had my taster of that, and I had my taster of that with Pippin as well. So I know how special it's going to be when we're all back, but
can't wait.
I can't pick one show. I'm going to pick lots of shows, but Phantom, I think, is on my list simply because the day that the theatre's closed, I've seen Phantom 15 to 20 times. I've lost count how many times I've seen it. And I really wanted to see the cast that were at Her Majesty's at the time. And I remember thinking, oh, the shows might close soon. I don't know how long. I don't know how long it'll be for. And I walked past Her Majesty's and I thought, wonder if, I was walking to see how much the tickets are and see if there's any like last minute discounts or anything, which there never is with Phantom. They never do decent discounts.
No.
And I walked in and they were like, yeah, tickets are like 100 quid. And I was like, yeah, all right, see you later. And I walked out, got on the train, and they got a text from a friend just saying, oh, the shows are all cancelled. And I was thinking, oh, wow. I bumped into friends on the way to the station to go home who were on the way to working on Waitress or 9 to 5 or whatever the shows they were doing. And then suddenly I went, they've just walked into the theatre to be told the show's closing. But at the time, we didn't know how long for. So it was this thing of going, I knew my tour of Cats had been cancelled. It was definite. People were leaving, picking up things and going, will I be back in 3 or 4 weeks? Will I be back in a few months? And obviously it's turned out it's been a whole year. So Phantom, because of that, of me walking past, I'm like, I feel like I need to go back and buy that ticket now and be there to watch watch it and see what they're going to do with it, see the changes they're going to make and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very good choice. So the very last thing we're going to do is a nice little quiz about how well you know cats.
Okay.
First question is difficult. The rest of them are really easy. The first question is, how many songs are in the original London cast recording, including the memory radio edit? Enjoy that question.
Oh, absolutely no idea, because I flick through most of them. I just listen to the good bits. I'm going to say 19, 20.
23. Very close, though.
I was only a few off.
With 20, you're close enough. The next question. There's only actually 5 questions, so we've got this.
Okay.
The second question, the rest of these are like show knowledge, so you should be fine.
Okay.
What does Gumby Cat teach the mice?
Sewing. No.
There's three things. She says it in her song.
Oh God, no. Oh, I'm busy doing a quick change during this bit. I'm normally not listening. The cockroaches need employment. She says that.
They do.
Oh, I don't remember. I just remember them doing sewing movements.
They do. They do music, crocheting, and tatting.
Yes, they do.
They do.
That's yeah. I think I was either being a cat
Caught
on
you out on
stage
that
or
one.
Yeah, I'm failing.
You're failing, but you're gonna pull this back now, because who are a notorious couple of cats?
Munga Jerry and Rumpelteazer.
Yes, indeed. I knew you'd get that one, you see. And these last 2 ones, I don't even think there's any point in them being questions. Who wrote the music for Cats?
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Absolutely. And what was Cats based off?
T.S. Eliot's book of Possum Book of Practical. Oh God, I can't even remember the full title now.
You don't even need the full title.
T.S. Eliot's.
T.S. Eliot. But no, yeah, I'd say 3 out.
Oh, no, I didn't do well enough with that.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll go 3.5 out of 5, because 20 is close enough. 20 is close enough. So well done on that. There you go. And some extra cats knowledge for you there in the
absolutely. For next time.
The last few things I want to do. Firstly, remind everyone watching that I'm trying to raise a bit of money for Acting for Others by doing these, just because it's really important at a time like this to do so. So there'll be a link in the description, and if anyone wants to give anything, they can do that, and it's a really good cause. Secondly, I would like to remind everyone to follow me on social media. I'm not in it for the clout. I just want you guys to find out who's coming up next in the Zoom, and you won't find out unless you're following, so you better do that too. And finally, thank you for joining me, Harry. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and finding out all your stories and things.
My pleasure.
I'm
not very good at giving short answers.
That's not a problem. we like long stories. This is what we enjoy. We enjoy a story.
It's nice sharing them as well. Because you don't always get the chance to think about go back and think about these things as well sometimes, so it's nice.
Yeah, well, you're always welcome to come back and tell more stories whenever you like.
Story time with Harry. I'm sure your viewers are a bit done with me by this point, so maybe wait a bit.
Not so sure of that, but no, thank you for joining me, and thanks for watching anyone who's listened to this. Thank you so much.
Awesome.